the wife he purchased. The train left Eliza Whitmore, standing alone on a narrow platform that seemed to dissolve into dust on every side. The conductor did not offer farewell, only a distracted nod before the engine pulled away, dragging with it the last familiar sound she would hear for many miles. Silence followed, vast, unbroken, and merciless. She folded her gloved hands to stop their trembling. Texas, the letters had promised, was a place of opportunity, a place where a respectable marriage could secure comfort, stability, and purpose. Caleb Whitmore had written of a fine home, fertile land, and a desire for companionship after years of loneliness. His words had been measured, formal, and reassuring. They had sounded like safety, but safety did not meet her at the station. Instead, a tall man in a dark coat approached without haste. His boots stirred the dirt with deliberate weight, as if even the earth must acknowledge his authority. He did not smile. He did not bow. He did not offer his hand. "You're late," Caleb said. Eliza blinked, unsure she had heard correctly. The train arrived exactly as scheduled. His eyes swept over her, not warmly, not curiously, but critically, as one might inspect delivered goods. "Travel dishevels things," he muttered. "You'll do." The words settled like cold ash in her chest. There was no greeting, no welcome, no kindness, only a gesture toward a waiting wagon. During the ride to his property, Caleb spoke little, and when he did, it was not conversation but instruction. He explained which room she would occupy, what hours meals were expected, and which parts of the house she was not to enter. He did not ask about her journey, her family, or the life she had left behind. It was as though those things had ceased to exist the moment she stepped onto his land. Eliza watched the prairie roll endlessly past and realized she had never felt so far from anywhere. The house itself was large, but not in the way she had imagined. It was not lively or welcoming. It stood severe and square against the horizon, its windows dark like unblinking eyes. Inside, everything was orderly to the point of sterility. There were no personal touches, no scattered books, no evidence of laughter or shared living. Only structure, only control. "You will find," Caleb said as he led her inside, "that I value discipline. A household runs best when expectations are clear." Eliza nodded, though unease tightened around her thoughts. "Of course, I intend to be a good wife." He paused then, as if the word itself had surprised him. "Yes," he replied after a moment. "That is what you are here for. Not who, what." The distinction lingered. Days passed with mechanical precision. Eliza learned quickly that Caleb's world was governed not by affection, but by ownership. He dictated meals, yet rarely shared them. He spent evenings away without explanation. He corrected small imperfections, a misplaced chair, an extra teaspoon of sugar, as though they were moral failings. When she attempted conversation, he responded with impatience. When she remained quiet, he seemed satisfied. Loneliness settled into the house like dust. One afternoon, while arranging ledgers in his study as instructed, Eliza discovered something she had not been meant to see. A letter, folded carelessly among business papers. It bore a woman's handwriting, loose, intimate, unmistakably familiar in tone. "You promised you would not keep her long. This arrangement grows tiresome." Eliza did not read further. She did not need to. The realization did not arrive dramatically. It came slowly, like dawn revealing something already present. Caleb had never sought a partner. He had needed a wife the way a man required furniture, to display respectability, to silence questions, to maintain appearances. She was not chosen. She was acquired. That evening, when Caleb returned smelling faintly of perfume that was not hers, Eliza understood the full measure of her situation. The marriage she had crossed half a country to build was an illusion sustained for convenience. Whatever vows had been spoken meant nothing within these walls. Yet he still expected obedience, still expected permanence, still expected her to remain. The moment that changed everything came without warning. A young servant boy dropped a tray during supper, the crash shattering the heavy silence. Before Eliza could rise to help, Caleb stood abruptly, fury flashing across his face with frightening speed. The reprimand was swift, harsh, disproportionate. Eliza watched the boy scramble to gather broken porcelain with shaking hands, murmuring apologies that only seemed to worsen Caleb's temper. There was no patience in Caleb's voice, no mercy, only domination, the need to assert power simply because he could. Something inside Eliza shifted then. Until that moment, she had told herself she could endure. That loneliness was survivable. That disappointment could be borne with dignity. But cruelty was something else entirely. And cruelty, she realized, would not lessen with time. That night, she lay awake listening to the wind drag across the plains like a warning whispered against the house. The vastness she had feared upon arrival now seemed to call to her instead. Beyond those walls existed hardship, uncertainty, and the possibility of freedom. Inside them, there was none. Eliza rose quietly, her decision forming not as rebellion, but as necessity. If she stayed, she would disappear piece by piece until nothing remained but the role Caleb required. If she left, she might not survive, but at least she would still belong to herself. As she gathered what little she could carry, the first pale light of dawn began to edge across the horizon. And somewhere deep within the silence of that endless land, a new and dangerous hope took root. Eliza Whitmore stepped out of the house without looking back. Behind her lay the life she had been sold into. Ahead waited something unknown. And already, though she could not yet know it, someone had begun to follow. The distance between fear and freedom. By the time the sun lifted above the horizon, Eliza Whitmore had already ridden farther than she believed herself capable. She did not allow herself to think of consequences. Thought invited hesitation, and hesitation would send her back. Instead, she focused on rhythm, the steady movement of the horse beneath her, the whisper of wind through tall grass, the fragile certainty that each mile placed distance between herself and the house she refused to call home. The prairie did not welcome her, but neither did it judge. It stretched endlessly, indifferent to whether she survived or vanished within it. That indifference, strange as it was, felt kinder than Caleb's attention. She had taken little when she fled. A canteen, a small parcel of bread, and the certainty that she could not remain where she had been. Already the water was running low, and the heat pressed down with growing insistence. Texas was not the soft countryside she had known in childhood. It was a land that demanded endurance. Still, she rode. Behind her, somewhere beyond the rise of distant hills, Caleb Whitmore would be waking. He would discover the empty room, the missing horse, the absence of obedience. Eliza knew him well enough to predict what would follow. He would not grieve. He would pursue. Caleb stood in the doorway of their bedroom long after the truth had become undeniable. The open wardrobe, the untouched breakfast tray, the silence. Each detail confirmed what anger had already told him. She had left, not asked permission, not offered explanation. Left. The insult struck deeper than abandonment ever could. To Caleb, marriage was an agreement of authority, not affection. Eliza's departure was not a wife escaping misery. It was a possession removed without consent. The distinction mattered greatly to him. He descended the stairs with measured calm, though fury sharpened every movement. "Prepare my horse," he instructed a ranch hand, "and send word to Sheriff Darnell." Within the hour, the sheriff arrived, his hat tipped low against the glare of morning. He listened without interruption as Caleb explained the situation, though the explanation bore little resemblance to truth. "My wife is unwell," Caleb said evenly. "Confused. She's wandered off and may come to harm. I want her found and returned before she does something regrettable." Sheriff Darnell studied him carefully. He was a man accustomed to disputes dressed as concern, but the law was clear and the land clearer still. A husband's authority was rarely questioned. "We'll track her," he said at last. "She can't have gone far." Caleb's expression hardened. "See that you don't treat this lightly. She belongs here." The sheriff nodded, though the word belongs lingered unpleasantly in his thoughts. By midday, Riders were already scanning the plains for signs of passage. Eliza did not know how close they were. She only knew the sun had climbed too high, and her strength was beginning to fail. The land offered little shelter. The air shimmered with heat, and the horizon refused to draw nearer, no matter how long she rode. Her hands blistered. Her throat burned. Fear crept in, not fear of Caleb, but of the land itself. She dismounted beside a narrow stream bed that had long since dried to cracked clay. The horse drank the last of the water she allowed it, and she sank to her knees, dizzy with exhaustion. For the first time since fleeing, doubt entered her mind. Freedom, she realized, was not gentle. It demanded payment. The wind shifted, carrying with it a sound she did not recognize, soft, deliberate, almost lost beneath the rustle of grass. Eliza looked up. A figure stood at the edge of the rise, overlooking the stream bed. He had not approached noisily, nor announced himself. He simply stood there, observing, as though he had always been part of the landscape and she had only now noticed. His presence was steady, composed, and entirely without threat. Eliza's breath caught. She had expected pursuit to look like Caleb, loud, forceful, claiming space as if entitled to it. This man did none of those things. He did not reach for her, did not speak, did not advance. He waited. The distance between them remained untouched, offered rather than enforced. Eliza realized, with a strange clarity, that if she chose to stand and walk away, he would allow it. After everything she had endured, the absence of force felt more startling than violence. Her exhaustion overcame fear, and she swayed where she knelt. The man moved then, but only enough to place a canteen upon the ground several paces away before stepping back again. The gesture was careful, intentional, leaving the choice entirely hers. Water, freely given, not demanded, not exchanged, simply offered. Eliza stared at the canteen, then at the man, unsure how to understand such an encounter. The world she had fled operated on control and consequence. Kindness without condition felt unfamiliar, almost suspicious. Yet thirst won. She reached forward and took the canteen. The water was cool, real, life returning with every swallow. When she looked up again, the man was still there, silent as the horizon itself. In that moment, Eliza understood she had crossed more than physical distance. She had stepped beyond the reach of one life, and into the beginning of another she did not yet comprehend. Far behind her, riders followed fading tracks across the prairie. But here, in the vast stillness, she had found something unexpected. Not capture, not command, only watchful patience. And it was enough to make her stay. A place without chains. Eliza did not remember falling asleep. Exhaustion had claimed her swiftly after she drank, her body surrendering to the first sense of safety it had known in weeks. When she woke, the light had softened into late afternoon, and the air carried the faint scent of smoke and earth rather than dust alone. She was no longer beside the dry stream bed. For one disoriented moment, panic surged. Had she been taken, carried back, delivered into another kind of captivity? But the fear faded as quickly as it came. She lay beneath a simple shelter made of stretched hide and wooden poles. It was not confinement. The front remained open to the wide expanse of prairie. Nothing blocked her path outward. Nothing suggested she was expected to remain. Beyond the shelter, a small encampment moved with quiet purpose. Figures walked between fires, gathered water, or tended to daily tasks with an ease that spoke of rhythm rather than command. No one hurried. No one shouted. The absence of harsh voices struck Eliza more deeply than any greeting might have. She sat up slowly. The man who had found her stood several yards away, speaking with a woman who appeared older, her long dark hair threaded with silver. When he noticed Eliza was awake, he did not approach immediately. Instead, he finished his conversation, allowing her time to gather herself. It was such a small courtesy, yet it unsettled her more than intrusion would have. At last, he stepped closer, stopping well beyond arm's reach. "You are stronger today," he said. His voice was calm, neither questioning nor assuming familiarity. The words carried an accent unfamiliar to her, yet his meaning was clear. Eliza hesitated. "You brought me here? You could not walk," he replied simply. "Now you can choose." The statement lingered between them. Choose. No demand followed it. No explanation of what choice he expected. Only the quiet certainty that whatever she decided would not be resisted. "I don't know where I would go," she admitted. He inclined his head slightly, as though acknowledging a fact rather than accepting responsibility. "Then you may rest until you do." The older woman approached then, carrying a wooden bowl filled with broth. Her expression held curiosity, but not suspicion. "I'm Tala," she said. "You will eat." It was not an order. It was an assurance. Eliza accepted the bowl, surprised by how natural the gesture felt. Hunger overcame uncertainty, and the warmth steadied her hands. "You are not a prisoner," Tala added, as if sensing the question Eliza had not voiced. "No one here is kept." Eliza glanced beyond them. "And he?" she asked quietly. Tala followed her gaze to the man. "Is Nakona." The name seemed to carry weight, though it was spoken without ceremony. "He leads," Tala continued, "but he does not take." Eliza lowered her eyes to the bowl, absorbing the distinction. Days passed in a manner entirely unlike those she had known before. No one questioned her presence. No one interrogated her past. She was given space to move freely, to observe, to participate if she wished. When she helped Tala grind herbs or carry water, gratitude was offered, not expectation. It unsettled her at first. She had grown accustomed to living under scrutiny, measuring every action against Caleb's approval. Here, no such approval was required. The absence of control left her unsure of how to exist. Freedom, she discovered, could be as disorienting as fear. Nakona appeared rarely, yet she senses awareness constantly, not invasive, but protective, like a boundary drawn without being seen. When he spoke, it was brief and purposeful. He did not ask her to stay. He did not suggest she leave. He allowed her to become accustomed to stillness. One evening, as the sun lowered into a horizon painted with copper light, Eliza found herself standing at the edge of the encampment. The prairie stretched endlessly before her, open in every direction. There was nothing to prevent her from walking away. No walls, no orders, no claim. She realized then that the decision she had imagined making had already been given to her many times over. Each morning she remained was not obedience, but willingness. The difference was profound. Tala joined her quietly. "You listen for something," she observed. "For writers," Eliza admitted. "They will come. He will not stop looking." Tala nodded, unsurprised. A man who believes he owns something will always search for it. Eliza felt a familiar weight return at the thought of Caleb. The law would stand with him. Society would agree with him. By every measure she had once trusted, she was still his wife. Yet nothing in this place recognized that bond. "What happens when they find me?" she asked. Tala's gaze remained on the horizon. "That depends on what you believe you are." Eliza did not answer, because she did not yet know. That night, distant thunder rolled across the plains, not from a storm, but from something more deliberate. Hoofbeats, faint, far away, but unmistakable. Eliza stood outside the shelter, listening as the sound drifted across the land like an approaching memory she could not escape. Nakona appeared beside her, his expression unchanged, his presence steady. "They are coming," she said. "Yes." He did not reach for a weapon, did not call for alarm. "You should send me away," she insisted. "I brought this trouble here." Nakona looked at her then, truly looked, his gaze unwavering. "You did not bring it," he said. "It was already following you." The distinction struck her deeply. For the first time, someone did not see her as the cause of conflict, but as its survivor. The hoofbeats grew louder, carried by the night wind. Eliza felt fear rise again, but this time it was not fear of being alone. It was fear of being taken back. And as she stood there between pursuit and refuge, she realized the choice ahead would no longer be about escape. It would be about whether she was willing to claim the freedom she had been given. The riders were coming, and with them, the life she had fled, the choice that could not be taken. The riders arrived at dawn. Their approach announced itself long before they came into view, a low tremor passing through the earth, steady and inevitable. Eliza stood at the edge of the encampment, her hands clasped tightly to keep them from shaking. Around her, the morning unfolded as it always had. Fires kindled, water carried, voices low and calm. No one ran. No one prepared for battle. They did not behave like people awaiting confrontation. They behaved like people who refused to surrender their peace to it. When the riders finally crested the rise, Caleb Whitmore led them. His coat was travel-stained, his expression sharpened by anger rather than fatigue. He did not look relieved to have found her. He looked vindicated, as though her discovery proved a point he had long intended to make. Behind him, Sheriff Darnell and two others slowed their horses, their gazes sweeping over the encampment with wary uncertainty. The stillness unsettled them more than resistance might have. Caleb dismounted before the horse had fully stopped. "Eliza," he called, his voice carrying the clipped authority she remembered too well. "You've caused enough trouble. Gather your things. We are leaving." He spoke as though no time had passed, as though nothing had changed, as though she had merely wandered too far and would now resume her proper place. Eliza did not move. The silence that followed was not defiance alone, it was recognition. She saw now, with startling clarity, that Caleb had never come to understand her absence. He had come only to correct it. "I'm not going back," she said. The words were quiet, but they did not falter. Caleb's jaw tightened. "You don't know what you're saying. You're my wife. Whatever confusion you've entertained ends now." Sheriff Darnell shifted uneasily, but said nothing. Eliza felt the weight of expectation pressing toward her, the same pressure that had governed her life before. The law stood behind Caleb. Custom stood behind him. Every rule she had once trusted would insist she obey. Yet none of those things felt real here. "I was your possession," she answered, "not your partner. That is not a marriage." Caleb's temper broke through then, sharp and unguarded. "You were given a home, protection, a name, everything a woman needs." Eliza almost pitied him, because he truly believed it. Behind her, she sensed Nakona's presence, not intervening, not speaking, simply there. He did not step forward to defend her. He did not claim her cause as his own. He allowed her voice to stand alone. The realization strengthened her. "I needed kindness," she said. "You offered control. I needed honesty. You offered convenience. You never wanted me, Caleb. You wanted what I represented." Caleb took a step closer, anger masking something more fragile beneath it. "And this," he demanded, gesturing toward the encampment. "You think this is better? You think they won't tire of you?" No one reacted to his accusation. No one argued, because they did not need to. Eliza shook her head. "No one here has asked me to stay." That, more than anything, unsettled him. Caleb turned to the sheriff. "You see what's happened? She's been misled. I expect you to do your duty." Sheriff Darnell removed his hat, running a hand across his brow as he looked from Caleb to Eliza. The moment stretched, heavy with decision. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said carefully, "are you being held here against your will?" The question settled over everything. Eliza met his gaze. "No." "Are you prevented from leaving?" "No." The sheriff exhaled slowly, the tension easing from his shoulders. "Then there's nothing to retrieve." Caleb stared at him in disbelief. "She's my wife. She's a person," Darnell replied, "and she's made her choice." The words landed with finality Caleb could not argue away. Authority, the force he had relied upon, had slipped beyond his reach. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, with visible effort, he gathered the remnants of his composure. "You'll regret this," he told Eliza, though the threat lacked conviction. "The world isn't kind to women alone." Eliza looked past him, across the wide land that had once frightened her. "I know," she said, "but neither were you." Caleb mounted his horse without another word. The riders turned, their departure far quieter than their arrival. Dust followed them briefly, then settled, leaving the horizon unchanged. The danger had passed as swiftly as it had come. Eliza remained where she stood, uncertain what she expected to feel. Relief came first, then something deeper. Not triumph, not even happiness, only a steady sense of belonging to herself. Nakona approached at last, his expression as calm as it had been the day they met. "It is finished," he said. Eliza considered the horizon once more. "No," she answered gently. "It's beginning." He studied her, as if weighing the truth of that statement, then inclined his head in quiet acknowledgment. There were no promises between them, no declarations, only the understanding that whatever came next would not be taken or given by force. It would be chosen. As the sun climbed higher, the camp resumed its rhythm, unchanged yet entirely different to her now. Eliza stepped forward to join the day's work, not because she was told to, not because she must, but because she wished to, and for the first time, that was reason enough. The prairie stretched endlessly ahead, no longer an escape, but a future waiting to be lived.